Sairam everyone, I am your host Clara from Region 7, Zone 1 of the Sri Sathya Sai International Organization, SSSIO for short, and a part of the Sai Technocare team. Sai Technocare is a national initiative of the SSSIO-USA to help members of all ages safely and confidently navigate online technological spaces. Welcome to the Financial Scams Awareness Podcast, where we will dive into stories from the Sai Technocare ecosystem that educate on financial scams. Today's episode is on phishing scams, and we have an interesting story from a tech-savvy individual who fell victim to a phishing scam claiming as Apple support.
Sairam everyone, I'm your co-host Tejaswini from Region 5 Zone 1 of SSSIO, and I'm part of the Sai Technocare team. Joining us today is our guest Pratima Rao, who has been a Mac user for over 15 years and works in the tech industry. Welcome, Sister Pratima.
Sairam, I offer my humble and loving pranams at the divine lotus feet of my beloved Swami. I'm very excited to be part of this podcast. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm sure today's episode is going to be really interesting, so let's dive in. Sister Pratima, can you start by telling us your story of encountering a financial scam?
Yes, of course. My story is about the time when I had purchased my new MacBook Pro M1 when it first came out about 4 years ago. Because this MacBook had the new chip M1, which is Apple's new chip, I was a little skeptical whether it would be as good as the old one, which was made with Intel chip. So when I began to set it up, after about an hour or so, I saw the flashing sign, your computer has a virus, big and bold. First I thought it was one of those fake, virus scan alerts, but it kept flashing, and then suddenly I started to panic.
That sounds terrifying. What was your immediate reaction to that message?
Once I started to panic, I felt this wave of panic wash over me. And then I suddenly saw call Apple support message along with an 800 number. So once I saw that, I was relieved because I have called Apple support many a time before. And as this was a new computer, a new chip, I was already skeptical. And when I panicked, I picked up the phone and called that number. So when I heard a human voice, very professional, that person asked some basic questions, I felt quite reassured. And he sent me a link and he wanted me to confirm it so that I could give him access to my screen. So I did. And then I could see his cursor all over my screen, and then I realized, oops, I've given him access to my computer and this is not really Apple support.
That's a scary moment. What went through your mind when you realized what you have done?
So, there was this little voice inside me screaming and saying, what a stupid move that was. How could I have given access to our Wi-Fi, our home drive, and our secure drive to an intruder? So I literally froze. And, when I panic, I started chanting, Sairam, Sairam, like I always do when I'm in trouble. And I quickly shut down my computer. And then I had time to think about what had happened. I could not believe that I could be so foolish to have fallen for the scam. I knew this was a scam, clearly. I always wondered who would fall for scams like this, and why did I fall for it? I know better than that.
I can totally understand your situation. How did you realize that something is fishy?
So, typically, I've used Apple support many a time. And Apple support does send you a link so that they can view your screen. So what they're not able to do is click on anything. So they have this cursor, an arrow, and once you give them access to your screen, they will be able to view it, and they'll tell you, hey, click on this and click on this and do this. And that's what I thought it was all about when I gave them access. But then I realized this person was not using his arrow. He was actually going and clicking on all my icons. That's when I realized, oops, this is not Apple support, this is a scam. And it didn't seem quite right.
It's so easy to underestimate how quickly panic can lead to poor decisions. And that situation which you just explained me, I can relate to that. Looking back, what did you think lead you to make that choice?
So, I realized that they play not on your intelligence, but on your emotions. And they create this unnecessary panic. And when you panic, you don't think clearly, right? And you make knee-jerk reaction. And you take action due to the urgency they create. So that is why I did not think twice before I called them. I am ashamed of myself to have fallen for this scam, but it is what it is.
That's an important lesson for our audience. Have you spoken to your family members about this experience?
Yes, I did. I had to, because our home drive, our network was compromised, right? So I had to inform everyone, and they still tease me to this date. And it's a reminder for all of us, to be vigilant and not let panic dictate our actions.
And Sister Pratima, how did you ensure your security after the incident? I'm sure that after going through all this, you would have strong security measures, right?
Yeah, so our home network is very secure. So the first thing I did was I reset my computer. I reinstalled all the software because I don't know what damage might have happened, right? So reinstalled all the software, changed all the passwords for our home drive, our network, our Wi-Fi, anything that could have been compromised. So it was a wake-up call for me and my family.
Yes, okay. And before we wrap up, can you relate your experience with Swami's teaching, which can help us as a guiding principle during such a challenging situation?
Yeah. Swami says, Sati Sai Baba says, truth has no fear. Untruth shivers at every shadow. So this resonates with my experience because it highlights the importance of being grounded in truth and not succumbing to fear. I learned that I need to approach situations with a clear mind and not get, panic take over. So once you panic and you don't think, you actually take the wrong decision.
That's a powerful takeaway for everyone. And thank you for sharing your story, Sister Pratima. It's a reminder for all of us to stay calm and think critically, especially in the moments of distress. Based on your experience, what advice would you like to give to our audience?
We hear about people who fall for these scams, right? And they are often judged. And as a result of which victims don't talk about it publicly as they feel ashamed. Honestly, I do feel ashamed of having fallen for the scam. However, I felt if this podcast would help even one person from falling a victim to such scams, then the story is well served. So we all must share our experiences so that we may learn from each other. Swami always says, be aware, be alert, and think before you act. So the second thing I'd like to mention is what has really worked for me is when I start to do any important work, a quiet prayer, asking Swami or your Ishtadevta for his guidance. That gives me assurance that nothing will go wrong. And he's there watching over me and guiding me.
Thank you, Sister Pratima, for joining us as a guest on our first podcast episode.
Thank you for having me. Sairam.
Sairam, over to Sister Clara.
Sairam, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Remember, stay informed and always alert, and don't let fear dictate your actions. Until next time, take care.